Um, what can residents here expect to see in your seventh term with regards to budgeting, major projects?
Well, we have to get through the recession. I mean, they're going to see continued trying to think of the right word, conservative decision making when it comes to spending money and expanding services. We still have problems that relate to the cost of doing business is rising faster than the source of income. With state aid cuts, the potential for further state aid cuts in 2011, budget-wise, it's still going to be very tight until the economic recession that we're in turns around. Because we need growth in order to be able to provide more money for the services that everyone needs. So from a budgeting point of view, it's just because there was an election doesn't mean that there's a box of money somewhere that magically pops out of somewhere. We're still at reduced hours. I'm still at reduced pay. Karen's still at reduced pay. I mean, the election didn't change any of that. As we come out of it, I think you've heard all this before. I don't intend to change that tact. As we come out of it, we're going to return the officers as soon as we can, because those are the people that are on layoff. The last report we had on layoff costs, there were 26 people laid off. But there are a couple of major positions here in town that, in the police department are those positions where we need to fill them back again. We need to add three guys to fire at some point, somewhere along the way. We have to figure out how to do that. But that's not stuff that's going to happen until the economy improves.
Mm-hmm. Can we expect to see some progress down the southern end of the rail trail? I know that the goal is to open that up to
for projects,
development possibly.
Yeah, for projects, we're going to extend the sewer line to South Main Street along the bike path, the extension of the bike path, to provide some more capacity there. We certainly want to continue to support the industry that's there. JPS Elastomerics, the urethane plant. The Boyles have a commercial development that they've started to construct there. There's some industrial property that is currently undeveloped in that area that needs to be served. So we're hopeful that by extending the infrastructure, there'll be some impetus to do some further development on the industrial property.
You mentioned bringing housing to Cottage Street as a major
the
goal
dye
for you,
yeah.
to the dye works. What's the status on your discussions?
Our last discussion was with Arch Street. They're still looking. They're talking to the owner. Their idea is rental, so apartments. And I think every downtown is served by residences. I think residential development in downtown areas is good for downtowns. We don't really want it at street level, storefronts, because that's an alternative use for storefronts that's really not very attractive in downtown. But to have them in the upper levels of existing buildings, or to reuse the dye works for a mix of residential and maybe some light commercial, would make a lot of sense. I mean, it's an idea that's been around for that building for quite some time. If there's a major investment there, we might be able to look at getting grant funding for the boardwalk as well. That could be tied to the investments that are available or that are made by the private sector. And those are just a couple of ideas moving forward. I mean, we've got major issues with infrastructure that we have to try to get a handle on. I mean, I think road improvement throughout the state is in trouble. And we're not faring any better than anyone else. We're doing some crack sealing this year to try to extend the life of a lot of road miles. But there's certainly more needs out there than there are funds to provide for. And I don't think that that's something that we're going to be able to fix on a local basis. I think that that's something that we need to look at statewide and maybe even nationally. How do we maintain the infrastructure that we put out there? It's so very expensive to reconstruct roads that we spend $370,000 or $380,000 a year in road money, and we're not doing probably 10% of what we should be doing with it. but it's all based on cost. The available dollars hasn't really gone up over the years, but the costs have. So what you might have been able to pave 2-3 miles for 20 years ago, you're lucky to get a half a mile.
Do you have any questions, Don?
Maybe a general one. You know, and I kind of, because I'm not the Easthampton beat guy, I kind of look at things a little more generally. In watching the results last night, we were watching here in Northampton, and both you and Claire had your first serious challenges in quite a while. And you're both right around the halfway mark, and pardon me, in what you got in the end. Is there a concern that other 50% has that you are looking at this morning saying, okay, there's a message there for me as well?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, the message, I think, is that we need to figure out a way to be more inclusive to everyone. People seem to feel, or they were convinced, that they didn't have a voice, and I don't think that was true in Northampton, and I don't think it's true here, but maybe, I think Matt asked about it earlier, maybe it's the way the message is crafted. And that's something that I'm not so sure that I'm going to be able to be a better wordsmith. But I think that's the feeling people got, is that, you know, I'm a huge proponent of green. I see no reason why we shouldn't put solar on any open space that can't be used for anything else, including landfills in people's backyards. I'm sorry, I don't know how to couch that so that the people who might be directly affected are going to be happy with that concept.
So there's going to be always a percentage of that 50% that didn't vote for you that there's not much you can do about.
Well,
in terms of specifics.
In terms of specifics, there are always going to be people that won't vote for someone for all kinds of reasons.
Right.
I think that people who aren't supportive of me have every voice that people who are supportive of me. And I'm hoping that the decisions that I make, based on what I think is in the greater good, are palatable or even supportable by more than the other side. Yeah, 49% is not a mandate at all. But in a four-way race, it's a pretty significant part of the vote, and I'm not going to try to take apart where the other pieces of the vote came from. There was a lot going on in this election, and I don't think you can give it 100% justice. You know, it's like everything that happened in the election would happen anytime, anywhere. But there are people that I think we need to try to figure out a different way to reach, try to figure out a softer way. Maybe it's a softer way. I'm not feeling particularly philosophical this morning. So I don't know I don't know that the conclusions that I'm going to draw from this last 3 months are going to gel for a few more weeks. I mean, I think it all needs to settle out. You have to understand that we've all been, you know, really having a couple of jobs. My day would start normally about 6 in the morning and end about midnight, split between this job and the campaign job. And it ended last night, and that's great, but you know, the wheels are still flying, and the flywheel is still going, and I think the gray matter has to kind of catch up.
And I guess in a sense, the campaigning isn't full tilt, but maybe it doesn't stop in that sense of being out and talking to those people and whatnot.
And I think that's the piece that I'm going to look to my supporters and the folks that help me in this campaign, is like, how do how do you put that political message out there along with the meat and potato stuff? Because that's the thing that I'm not skilled at. That's something that I hadn't practiced, and I think that makes a lot. That does a lot for people's comfort levels.